why don't they teach finance in school? I mean, we were listening to Outwitting the Devil this morning by Napoleon Hill, and he pretty much fucking trashes school, especially public school, and he trashes religion and religious teachers. There's a lot to learn from him. Why don't we understand this? And I watched the Putin Tucker Carlson interview, which is super interesting, and I'm watching Candace Owens break it down, and she's basically saying that Americans are dumb and deluded and drugged, and I think there's a lot of truth to that too. She's making a very good point, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out, like, what's the connection? And I think it's something like this: if you don't have a public that understands economics, then you don't have a public that can comprehend what is happening on the global stage, because you need to understand basic economics to see why certain moves are chess moves on the global stage. For example, blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, basically, I'm going to try to say a couple things at once. Blowing up that pipeline, and then the fact there are two other pipelines that they could be using in Europe to bring in cheap energy, but they're not using it. It's another pipeline directly into Europe and one through Poland, two pipelines. The fact that they're not doing that means that they are trying to kind of manufacture a climate crisis, an energy crisis. And if you understand economics and you understand that cheap energy is available and that you can have governments have access to, especially European governments, then it destroys the climate crisis, essentially. You know, it's kind of similar to what happened in Spain in the last little bit, where you had, Spain was supposedly leading the cause in the this green new energy, and then people found out that actually all the recycling stuff was going into some garbage dump and not being handled at all the way it was advertised. It's like total scandal. That's another example of basically European countries being full of shit on this climate change stuff. And I think, climate change really is just a bullshit way to create kind of an endless crisis that they can just funnel money through and just conglomerate power. It's just another Marxist fucking, consolidation of power, and the state is always right. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, if you go back to the Orwellian, thought process, he was saying way back in 1984 that the state basically wants a continued present where the state is always right, like whether it's on gender issues or racist issues or whatever, they're always right. If you look at the Democrats and the Democratic state and the WEF and the Marxist state, you see it over and over again. They're always right. Like, that's the thing. And I think that's what makes people just feel like, oh, fuck them, and just kind of get sick of it, is that, I see these young kids rebelling against it. I'm kind of like, why are they rebelling against it? They don't know anything. But then they do smell that there's like just a bullshit to it. There's not like a truth to it. How could they always be right on every fucking single thing? It's ridiculous. Like, it's just inhuman. So, you can just tell that it's bullshit. If you have any bullshit meter in your system, you can tell that something's off. And I think that's what's happening. And I think maybe they've gone too far and there's going to be a huge pushback. But I don't know. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying it's just interesting. I start to think, oh my God, these globalists have won and they've taken over. And then I see these little pockets of like fuck you and rebellion, and I'm like, well, that's pretty interesting. Like, the human spirit is actually really fucking strong. So, I don't know. Like, maybe they'll create a global empire. Maybe they won't, though. Maybe they'll lose. Kind of remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. But you definitely want your autonomy, and you need to have basic financial education to do that. And that's what I think they're depriving people. But then you can go on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and learn financial education for free very easily. So, it's not that hard. And obviously, I'm one of the people. So feel free to look at my stuff and learn from me. But I'm certainly not the best, and I certainly don't know everything. I'm certainly not always right, like these fuckers claim to be. So, that is what it is. Take that with a grain of salt. Take what I say with a grain of salt. So, but I just was kind of thinking about that. No financial education in school. Why? It's probably the most important thing. And to not have financial education is what allows the devil into people's minds. In other words, if people are terrified of money and worried about, are they going to be able to eat this week, then that's how you get into people's minds and cause them to do the devil's work, whether it's robbing people or just, being ruled by fear and making bad decisions, like whatever it is. that's how the devil gets in. So that's kind of a theme of outwitting the devil. The devil's like, yeah, I've got people based on basic fear. And I think if you look at our government, what do they sell you? Look at the pandemic. They love selling you fear. Anybody that's selling you fear is doing the devil's work. So just keep that in mind. No financial education, selling fear, these are bad, bad, bad qualities.